For more on this, I'm now joined by Kerry Eleveld in San Francisco. She's a former White House correspondent for The Advocate, a magazine that focuses on lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender rights. She is working on a book about the Obama administration's rather complex relationships with the LGBT movement. Kerry, why don't I start with just kind of this evolution? There was this groundbreaking ruling in Massachusetts back in 2003 about same-sex marriage. At the time, it was really a hot-button political issue. Now, as Nathan pointed out, growing public support for same-sex marriage in the country in recent years. Can you trace that step from back then to now? What happened?
Well, I have to be honest, Mike, it wasn't particularly easy, although it seems to have come very quickly. So in the past decade, as you mentioned, in Massachusetts, same-sex couples started marrying in 2004. And then on the ballot in 2004, during the presidential election, there were 11 states that year in November that passed constitutional marriage amendments, and they banned same-sex marriage in those states. And it was almost for, about 4 or 5 years, an all-out attack on same-sex marriage rights by the social conservatives in the United States. The marriage equality movement really had to gather itself together and come back from what was some very disheartening years in the aftermath of 2004. What happened was public opinion steadily grew, and people came out to their moms and dads, their sisters, brothers, their neighbors across America. And over the years, it became an emergent movement of people coming out to, people they knew. And eventually, a lot of people in the United States knew people who were gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender. And that is what eventually turned the tide on same-sex marriage. And the public opinion has actually been very favorable to things like employment rights for gays and lesbians for a long time. But same-sex marriage took a little bit longer, and we saw the fruition today of those efforts of so many Americans across the country.
Do you think public opinion influenced the Supreme Court decision in any way?
Well, I do think we like to pretend that the Supreme Court does the most noble thing and always follows the Constitution. But, those justices live in the real world. They read the same papers and the same, outlets that everybody else does. And they know where public opinion is. They also, I think, don't like to issue decisions that necessarily do something that's completely disruptive to the entire nation if they can avoid it based on their reading of the Constitution. And when same-sex marriage first came to the court in 2009, actually, there was a shot at it in the early 70s, but that didn't go so well. It didn't even get heard. But when it finally got heard in 2013, there were only about 8 states that had legalized same-sex marriage at that point. At this point, in 2015, when same-sex marriage came back and the court heard it again, there were 36 states, and public opinion was around 60% in favor. And that makes a big difference, I think, to the justices as they weigh an issue like this that's so important to so many Americans.
Kerry, you've been watching this for some time. We've only got about 20 seconds. How long before these changes actually go into effect? Is it going to take a while?
Well, no, any state right now can start issuing same-sex marriage licenses. In 25 days, the Supreme Court will issue a mandate, and at that point, all states will have to be issuing same-sex marriage licenses. And there's already 36 states where same-sex couples can get married, so there's only about 14 that have to catch up, so it should be soon.
All right, Kerry Eleveld joining us from San Francisco live. Thanks so much.